This is once again to review the papers, the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and the writer and academic Mo Lovett. Ladies, good to have you on again. We're pushed for time, so Mo, let's jump straight on into it. Your story from The Sun, words we do not want to hear from the Russians, that they already view this as World War III.
Yes, I mean, obviously, none of us want World War III. I think this is an interesting story. This comes about because of the sinking of the flagship ship in the Black Sea that Russia have now, or certainly a host of a media channel, Russia One, which is backed by the Kremlin, of course, we know that, have described this as an escalation into World War III and say they are now fighting NATO infrastructure. That is not necessarily fact, as we know. There's a lot of propaganda coming out of both sides, but particularly in terms of the Russian side. But it's interesting that they've gone from calling this a strategic military operation in Ukraine to suddenly upping the ante. I mean, it is, let's face it, a major embarrassment for the Kremlin that this ship has been sunk. There's been a devastating loss of lives as well, of course. But the very fact that this ship was sunk, I mean, it's the first time, I think, since the Japan War of 1905 that such a catastrophic disaster has hit the Russian Navy. But obviously, serious embarrassment for the Kremlin. And the point of this ship is that it was there to protect other ships. It was kind of the lead ship within the Black Sea operation. So it is a major embarrassment. So this is probably why they've come out with this kind of fighting talk. But obviously, as you say, Neil, none of us want an escalation in the language or indeed the material reality on the ground. So yes, another turning point in the war, I think. Let's hope. I mean, there's already been one retaliation, I think, from Russia in bombing a missile factory just outside Kyiv as a result of in kind of retaliation for this sinking. But it's very worrying when we hear this sort of language coming out of Kremlin-sponsored TV stations. Yeah, and it'll also be interesting to see how the Kremlin responds to that. I think it's the story in the Times this morning about special forces being involved on the ground as well. But Dawn, can you take us to the front of the Daily Mail? And they seem to be getting quite annoyed about this, that civil servants, you know, the staff up and down Whitehall have adopted a hybrid working model. I thought that was what we were supposed to all be aiming for these days.
Well, I think we're all a bit confused. And firstly, it does feel weird that I'm not with you in the studio, Neil, but I do understand the restraining order. However, this is a Daily Mail exclusive investigation. They have got the Nixon twist about this one, that just 2 days a week in the office for civil servants. Thousands of mandarins, I mean, who uses that word in your life? But thousands of mandarins are now allowed to work from home. A Mail audit of a typical Monday in March, many public funded bodies had less than 10% of their staff in work. Some only 5%, and one none at all. Now, when you consider how hard some departments, in particular the doctors and nurses working for the Department of Health on the front line, are working, it's a bit much that some people are still actually working from home, and they're getting allowances to work from home as well. They get loans to buy desks and things like that. Now, look, there are enormous benefits to working in an office, especially if you're a younger employee, and also it supports satellite businesses like sandwich shops and the hospitality industry in cities as well. And it's all very well if you're a higher up civil servant, but if you're a youngster starting out, Neil, and you're living in cramped accommodation, working from home just can't be surely a good thing. And surely it's all time to get back to work.
Yeah, I think there were plenty of people agreeing with you this morning. Mo, take us, though, inside the Daily Mail. Interesting kind of marginal by-election coming up in Wakefield, and an interesting name doing the rounds as a potential Conservative candidate. Oh, in fact, he'd have to change his name from Lord Frost back to David Frost in order to stand.
Yeah, I think this is really juicy bit of gossip, Neil. Page 10 of the Mail. Tories are urging Lord Frost to stand in the Wakefield by-election. And as you say, he can actually, because of a change in the rules in 2014, he could actually come out of the Lords in order to stand. And I think the idea is that he's very popular, particularly with Brexit voters and the Tories in general. He's very statesmanlike. He's a professional man. He's a serious man, whether you agree with his politics or not. He's certainly seen as a very serious politician. So, and this is what the Tories think they need in the Wakefield by-election. Let's remember this was one of these red wall Tory seats that turned from Labour a long-term Labour seat up until 2019 when the Tories took it from Labour. I mean, I suspect, I think it's an interesting piece of gossip, and I'd really like to see David Frost return to frontline politics. I think it's probably a bit of a risky bet for him because it's not necessarily clear that the Tories are particularly high in the polls at the moment in this stage of the election cycle. So it could be a risk too much for Lord Frost, and he may play it safe and stay in the Lords. Why wouldn't he, I guess? But it's certainly an interesting bit of gossip, and I do think it's one to watch this space and see if Lord Frost is tempted by a return to the Commons.
I suspect we will soon find out. Dawn, you've got 30 seconds to tell us why 2/3 of Britons want the Prime Minister to resign if...
How many parties are too many parties? That's the big question on our minds at the moment. 55% of Brits, 2/3 of Britons actually want Boris Johnson out if he gets any more party fines. Obviously, it's already been fined 50 quid for being ambushed by a birthday cake, if I remember rightly, along with Rishi and the missus. I have the name, I completely forgot. So, in any case, they've already had one fine, but we think that if he gets fined more, then he should be out and he should resign. And interestingly, 55% of us also think that Rishi should resign. And Rishi, I thought he'd more or less got away with the one party. And only 14% of us, Neil, think that Boris is telling the truth about he didn't know what a party was.
Still, 1 in 4 think he should remain in role even if he does get more fines, which is another way of putting the headline on the story. Dawn, Mo, we will be back for round 3 just before 9 o'clock. We will see you then. But you can stay right where you are. We will have more from Ukraine. In the past few minutes, we've been hearing from the mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, suggesting that there has been an explosion on the outskirts of the capital, the southeastern district of Kiev on the left bank of Dnipro. We will have more of that after this.